Hi, good morning, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here. Paris is one of my absolute favorite cities in the whole world, so I'm so thrilled for the opportunity to be here presenting to all of you this morning. Just a little background about me before we dive straight into the presentation. I don't know if the slides are working. Maybe next slide if someone is manning that. Thank you. Just a few things about me. I grew up right outside of New York City and went to Harvard University. The only reason I mention that is because I have another sibling who did not graduate from Harvard University. And so when you have something one leg up, you have to talk about it a little. After that, I moved to New York City and had a few years of kind of traditional marketing experience at Ogilvy & Mather and Forbes. And it was right around that time that Facebook was starting to get a lot of traction. And my brother kept calling and saying, you have to come out and work for us. We need someone with digital marketing experience, which code meant we need someone to work for free, and you're my sister. So you have to come out to California and work. I told him I'd give him one summer to just see what it was all about. Went out to California and was literally just blown away. It was these young guys in a house coding around the clock 24/7, and thank you. And they just had this incredible passion and energy for what they were doing. You could really tell that they knew that what they were doing was changing the world. So I fell for it, never went back to New York, and have been out in California since. And the past 7 years have just been this amazing journey. I've had the opportunity to have a front row seat at some of just the greatest events in the world. Back one slide. Can't give away my great pictures yet. I've had the opportunity to have the front row seat at events like Arab Spring, presidential elections all over the world, some of the most monumental sporting events and events in pop culture. And a few things that I noticed that were really, really interesting is that first, Facebook took a very kind of demand-led marketing approach. So rather than opening to everyone on day one, it was a slow rollout, college by college. So first, students, if you had a .edu email address, you could get Facebook. Then it opened to corporations, then to everyone. So it made people feel very special and invite only. Another thing that was interesting is that Facebook crowdsourced a lot of our, as we expanded, translations into other languages. Facebook is available in over 70 languages around the world. Many of those have been translated directly by users themselves. French was actually one of the first languages that Facebook expanded into, and with our French user base, in 48 hours, the entire site was translated. So about a few months ago, I decided that it was time for me to I caught the entrepreneurial bug for myself and decided it was time for me to move on from Facebook. I'm still very, very involved in doing a lot with Facebook, but there were a few things that really made me take that leap for myself. The first was a small project that I started during one of our all-night coding hackathons, was nominated for an Emmy Award in television. I actually didn't even know it was nominated for an Emmy until like a week before the Emmys happened, because how would we know? But there's a huge shift happening where online video is getting more and more recognized for excellence in the way that television is. And I really wanted to be a part of that movement. But one of the biggest catalysts, and next slide, please, is my son, Asher, who just turned 1 very recently. And having him really made me see a lot of differences in how people use technology. For example, there's a whole world of children that will now talk to their parents through computers. So I saw a 2-year-old the other day look at a computer and call it Grandpa, because they're so used to talking to Grandpa through Skype. And this whole world he's going to grow up in, so complicated. He'll have his relationships where he has to think about, when he makes it Facebook official or not. Or like at his wedding one day, he won't even be able to control his own photographs because guests will be like probably live tweeting photos before he can even see the proofs from his photographer. So that really made me want to be a part of the change in communication for his generation. Next slide, please. So before I jump into kind of my top 10 tips on social media, I wanted to, this is kind of the stand-up humor portion of the morning, who you don't want to be on social media. First example, please. The crazy cat lady. I don't know how many of you know someone like this. This is the part of my presentation where I give a shout out to Erin, who works closely with me because this is her profile. And Erin, my love, you hit two wonderful things in this presentation because there's not only are the cats, but the status update, if you notice, it says, "Home with my cats, life doesn't get any better than this." Now, I'm sure all of you have seen someone that writes something like, "At home eating like meatballs and watching this thing, like life doesn't get better," and you're like, actually it does. It gets a lot better. Like maybe don't post that. Next slide, please. The obsessive food blogger. That person who like feels the need to post photos and descriptions of every single meal they're eating throughout the day. Next slide. Or the face bragger, that friend of yours that like you know they have a normal life, but they seem to only update when they're doing something amazing and want to tell the whole world about it. And final example. This is the old person who just doesn't get it. So here is a dad on Facebook who is mistaking it for Google. Next comment. So I know we've all seen someone who's doing that. This slide might seem a little random to put up a slide of the Facebook culinary team, but one thing I really miss about being at Facebook is the free food. They had amazing food from kind of celebrity chefs in the area. And the culinary team, they, because it was at Facebook, they made their own Facebook page. And what I noticed one day is that there were about a few thousand people, about 4,000 people who work at Facebook, and almost 30,000 people liked this page. So there were 26,000 people who had nothing to do with Facebook and just wanted to see what we were eating for lunch every single day. So as a marketer, I aspire to create a page so engaging that 26,000 people who have nothing to do with my company want to see that page. So now I want to get into kind of the top 10 tips that I'm seeing for social media. I've had the great opportunity of traveling around, of speaking to a lot of amazing entrepreneurs and a lot of top tech events, and these seem to be some of the top things that are on everyone's mind. Next slide, please. And actually, one more. The sharing economy. There's this really interesting trend going on right now where people want to have a luxury life, but they don't want to spend like luxury. They want to have nice vacation homes, nice cars, designer outfits, but they don't want to pay the money for it. So we're starting to see the emergence of what kind of we're calling a sharing or rental economy. There's sites like Rent the Runway, which allow you to actually get a $2,000 designer dress and then send it back when you're done with it for just a fraction of the cost. Or Zipcar, which allows you to get around a city without owning a car on your own. The slide you're seeing here is Airbnb. So if I want to go to Paris and, sorry, back one, please. If I want to go to Paris and I want the experience of staying in a luxury hotel, but I don't actually want to pay for the luxury, I can actually go and rent someone's apartment or a room in someone's apartment and have that experience of having a vacation home of my own. Next slide. This is a site called Cherry that's just starting in the United States but expanding, where you can actually have someone come to your house and give your car a car wash right outside your house for you. So there's all of these new tools that are starting where people are able to live this very luxurious lifestyle for a fraction of the cost. Next slide. Trend number 2 is how do we redefine what the loyalty program of the future looks like. Now, when we think loyalty programs, we think of frequent flyer miles or hotel points. We don't often think about social media as a way to have a loyalty program with our fans. But Guild Group does something really interesting. They actually allow their Facebook fans to have 1 hour preview access to sales before everyone else does. So they really give their fans, sorry, not yet. They really give their fans a reason to like their Facebook page. So because if you get to the Facebook page, you get some exclusive access. So anyone out here who's running a Facebook page, please, oh wow, the slides are really having a mind of their own. Sorry. Thank you. I'll cue you for the slides. If you're running a Facebook page of your own, really, really think hard about exclusive access that you can give people so they feel they have a reason to like your page and they feel like if they're coming there, they're getting something special that they wouldn't just get otherwise. Next slide, please. People as platforms and media brands. All of you, it's very interesting. We're in a world where all of us are media companies in our own right. I worked on my high school newspaper when I was in school, and we had probably 30 people working on it for a total distribution of a few thousand readers. Now, I'm sure there are many of you in this room that reach a few thousand people every single day just through Facebook and Twitter. So we live in this interesting world where all of us are media companies, which means that's both wonderful and very, very scary for brands. On one perspective, if you have a great experience with a product and you tweet about it or update Facebook, so many people will now see wonderful things about that company. On the other hand, if you have a bad experience with a product, again, likewise, you may broadcast that now to thousands and thousands of people. So it's becoming more and more important for brands to provide excellent customer service and support for people, and for all of us to wield our social media power responsibly and wisely. Next slide. Mobile first. We're starting to see this whole real genre of companies coming about that originate on mobile and may never, ever, ever have a standalone desktop presence. Sites like WhatsApp, Food Spotting, Instagram, these are kind of this next generation of mobile first. So you can, I don't know if anyone here uses Food Spotting, but I've been using it to find great places to eat here in Paris. And there's just these incredible companies that are now having humongous valuations that are starting only on mobile because there's a whole generation that's really just tethered to mobile. Even with Facebook, we've noticed that if someone downloads the Facebook app, they are twice as engaged as someone who only uses it on the desktop. Next slide. People's curators. This is kind of my shameless shout out for my sister, but it really used to be that the only way to be an expert in something was to create content yourself. You had to write or draw or produce content, but now there's a whole new way to be considered an expert on a topic, and that is to curate what other people are creating online. There's so much noise online that there's more of an opportunity than ever before for expert voices to come and curate and reduce the noise. So here's my sister's Pinterest board. She is an amateur baker, but she loves gathering recipes, especially chocolate recipes. And she has a Pinterest board where she curates top recipes, and suddenly you have thousands and thousands of people that are following her even though she's not creating the recipes herself. Next slide, please. Similarly, on Facebook, there's a new feature that launched just a few months ago called interest lists. So you can curate kind of top places in Paris. You can curate things about celebrities or things related to your industry. And even though you didn't write the articles yourself, you can suddenly become an expert and have lots of people following you. So I would definitely think about how you could leverage that for your business, because people really, really want expert voices. Next slide. Now that everyone is in the process of switching to timeline on Facebook, think about what you could really do with your timeline, because timeline provides you with an excellent way to tell a beautiful visual story. Here is the Louvre's Facebook page. They do a beautiful job of using timeline as almost an extension of the museum itself. You can use timeline as almost a virtual magazine or a virtual photo gallery, because you get to just tell so much more about your brand to users and make it a very emotional experience. Next slide, please. Subscription and appointment shopping. This is a pretty fun one that's gaining a lot of traction. It used to be you could send someone like a wine of the month club or flowers of the month. Now you can send pretty much anything of the month to people. A few of the ones that are really starting to take off in the US and expand beyond, one is called Birchbox, where you can get 3 small beauty samples delivered to your door every month. And man packs for like the man in your life who won't shop for razors and socks. You can get that stuff all delivered to your doorstep. Again, I think this plays on the same theme as the curation, because there's so much noise out there, so many choices and products, that people just want an expert to choose for them. So if you work for a company or an industry, anything that you can do to be an expert voice, picking products, picking things for people to look at or pay attention to, you're going to really have a head start over your competition. Next slide. Video and live streaming. This is what I'm really focused on in my new company and new endeavor, because I think video provides the opportunity to tell such a rich, compelling story about your company and about the industry. Just a few fun things that we've done since I launched my new company in video. We've worked a lot with Cirque du Soleil, and I know that we have a great speaker from Wildfire later who's going to tell you a bit more. But we did a kind of a behind the scenes with Cirque du Soleil, where you could see what a day in the life was with all of the artists and the performers. And then on Facebook, you had to actually like the videos to unlock them one by one. So it gave people a real reason to like the videos and get their friends to like them. We've also done a lot with shopping, so you could actually buy products straight through Facebook, and we've done a lot with all-night hackathons. And I know I'm running out of time. I have only one trend left. Next slide, please. The final trend, and this is my absolute favorite one because I think it's so much fun, is the gamification of everything in our lives, especially things that used to seem tedious or not fun. So, for example, going for a run. You know, a lot of people love running. They get the runner's high. For me, it's really hard to get that start. But the Nike Plus app actually has this fun feature where if you post that you're going on a run and your friends like it on Facebook, it cheers for you in your ear while you're running. So you actually like hear applause. You're on your run and it's like, yay! Like John loved that you're going on a run. Like it totally gives you that boost. Next slide. This is an alarm clock where you put your credit card into it, and every time you hit snooze, it donates $1 to charity. It's a pretty good one. And then finally, a scale that tweets your weight. So, oh yeah, I know, believe me, if any one of you would get this product, you're a braver soul than I am. But like, talk about accountability. You actually step on the scale and it tweets your weight to your friends. So even making weight loss a game. So I know that was a very, very quick rundown of a lot of trends in the social media space, but I kind of wanted to kick off the day and the conference giving you a flavor of a lot of things that you'll hear about from the other speakers. And final slide, if since I threw so much information at you in a short time, if you want to get in touch with anyone from our team, if you're interested in thinking about social video and what productions online looks like, please feel free to reach out to any of us. And thank you all so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks very much, Randi. You want to stay? Just want to move up here? So we're going to take a few questions. I have a quick question. We don't have to sit down. Okay. You can stand. Right. But if you want to sit,
I didn't know if we were like formal, informal.
No, we can dance. All right. Okay. Great presentation. Thank you very much.
Oh,
you know, the one thing I noticed when you were chatting was that it was interesting how complicated it was going to be for your. You mentioned that your child's life was going to be very complicated,
yeah.
And it was really interesting to me because you've grown up in this whole world, and you're so digital and all that, and you still think it's going to be complicated for your child. Why?
I just think there's so many more layers of things you have to think about. And one of the topics or one of the causes that I hold really dearly is cyberbullying and how to counter cyberbullying. I talk to a lot of parents out there. There are things that like we never dealt with growing up that like would you ever imagine that like students in a locker room at school, like they snap photos of each other getting changed and then upload it to Facebook? So there's like things that happen like that like you might have bad photos of yourself online that you don't even know, that you didn't know someone took. So I feel really passionately about cyberbullying as a cause and how to counter that, but I think there's just so many things in this instant world of technology that he'll have to deal with that we didn't.
I'm worried that there's going to be 2-year-olds cyberbullying each other like through their iPads. The last thing is data. I want to talk a bit about data because the one thing about Facebook that's been so great, and a lot of, Pinterest doesn't have data yet. We're working with a couple of companies that may have that data. But the one thing about Facebook is that when you have a Facebook page, you get so much data.
You do.
What do you see as the future of data, and what are some of the things that are on your horizon that you think are exciting for both video and data overall?
I think what's really interesting about data is when you can bring it with you to sites besides just Facebook.com. So when you go to a news site and log in with Facebook, and all of a sudden it knows you and it knows what articles are important to you. Or you go to a travel site and all of a sudden it shows you reviews by your friends, or it shows you places that you would like. I think that ability to kind of use the data to personalize the web is what's really interesting to me.
Obviously, the Facebook purchase of Instagram was interesting because Facebook is so, photos are so important to Facebook. As you morph towards video, there's a lot of people here who are, from the TV business or from the content business. In terms of like an overall strategy, is it more important to have your video everywhere, or is it better just to be placing it on Facebook where your audience may be, or YouTube or any other? Is there a strategy you're using?
I mean, I think you definitely want the video to be everywhere, but I think the case with Facebook and photos shows that the most important thing is to make your content social. Because arguably, Facebook photos there's a lot of things that it's missing. You can't have red eye reduction, you can't edit your photos, there's a lot of things you can't do. But Facebook photos are still bigger than every other photo site on the web combined because of how social they are with the tagging. So I think that's the big thing to take away from this, is that anything you could do to make your content social is going to be better.
Are there any questions from the audience? Just want to grab it. Do you want to just, Kate, do you want to go for the microphone there? Anyone else while we're waiting for Kate to pop up? Okay. You only get one chance, really, honestly. Okay, go ahead, yeah.
Good morning, Randi. My name is Kate Bulkley. I'm a journalist based in the UK. So, very interesting presentation. Thank you for that. You talked about how your company is getting, you're talking about excellence in online video and how that's moving forward and the Emmy and all that. But there's a disconnect between a lot of online video and yet how do you monetize it? I mean, the big media companies are having a problem with it. I assume you're having a problem with it. How do we bridge that gap? What do you think, as somebody from the brand side and the marketing side, is going to be the thing that changes that equation?
Yep.
Great question.
That is an excellent question. One of the things that I'm starting to see that's really promising, I think to your question, we're still probably a couple of years away from being able to monetize video en masse, but we're seeing an interesting trend online where people are willing to pay for excellent content. You're seeing things like Game of Thrones and Downton Abbey, where people are watching long-form video and paying for it. And you're also seeing more and more comedians, instead of doing on-air television specials, they're doing like direct-to-pay online, like Louis C.K., Aziz Ansari. Louis C.K. decided to do his stand-up comedy special online for $5 and made $1 million over one weekend. Likewise, you're seeing folks like Oprah and Glenn Beck abandoning cable TV and going to digital, with Oprah's Life Class and Glenn Beck making $25 million this year in just pay subscription online. So I think we're still in very nascent stages, but I do think that the tide is turning where people are willing to pay for excellent content online. And it just is about, instead of making kind of like cat videos and user-generated content, it's about making excellent content.
Great. Okay, well, we're going to wrap it up. We're running a little bit behind. I do apologize. I really want to thank you. Thank you so much for coming to be the first speaker at the inaugural UbiQ. Please put your hand together for Randi Zuckerberg.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Great. Thanks a lot. Cheers. Great.